February 11, 1899, Clinton Mirror, Clinton, Iowa. St. Valentine's Day. It has a strange and interesting history dating from the 3rd century. As everybody should know by this time, St. Valentine was a bishop who lived in the 3rd century and was made a saint because he was martyred by Emperor Claudius II, February 14, 270. There is no connection between his life and death and the sending of comic or loving missives, and how they came to be connected makes a singular story. In the 3rd century, Christianity was struggling with paganism and could not make converts except by stealth. In later years, when the church became a political as well as religious power, paganism rapidly disappeared before its advances until all Europe became Christian, in name at least. Pagan beliefs, however, still lingered among the people, and, instead of crushing them out, which might have proved an impossible task, the church permitted the people to retain their old notions, but skillfully diverted them into Christian channels. Thus, the 15th day of February was the heathen festival of Februata Juno, and the people were allowed to keep the festival, but the name of Saint Valentine was substituted for the heathen goddess. That is how the good Bishop Valentine happens to have his name linked to merry doings that do not in the least accord with his pious life and tragic death. For hundreds of years, St. Valentine's Day was celebrated with mirth, revelry, and lovemaking, and it even found lodgment in this country, where no one knew about or cared for its origin. There was a time, not many years ago, when mail carriers fairly groaned under the burden of missives they carried on the 14th day of February, but now they hardly notice any increase in the mails. Valentine's Day has been practically killed in this country by extravagance. When Valentines cost a few cents, everybody could indulge in a harmless pleasure, but now the average young girl would turn up her pretty nose at any Valentine that costs less than $1. The dainty creations of paper, lace, and silk are works of art, but they have made ordinary Valentines seem poor and mean in comparison. Then again, the vending of the comic Valentine, the atrocious libel on art and poetry, has had much to do with destroying the pleasure of the day. Vile caricatures with doggerel verse, almost always insulting and intended to offend the receiver. These penny daubs were scattered, broadcast until many grew indignant at the very name of a Valentine. There may be a reaction someday, and then the 14th of February will be a time for pleasant greetings, not confined to lovesick swains and damsels, but a day when young and old, in cheap but pretty cards, can wish each other good luck and happiness until another year rolls around. That would be a Valentine appreciated by everybody. Golden Days. February 14, 1907, Toledo Blade, Toledo, Ohio. St. Valentine's Day. Here are some ways of observing St. Valentine's Day, which, though you may not care to follow, may, perhaps, prove interesting to read about. A pretty way of observing St. Valentine's Day is still the custom in some English villages. It is called Valentining. The children gather in a little band early in the morning and go from house to house singing some chorus like, "Good morrow to you, Valentine, curl your locks as I do mine, 2 before and 2 behind." The children receive the pennies, candies, and little notions that are tossed to them from the windows, dancing with glee. Children of Norfolk catch their Valentines by being first to say, "Good morning, Valentine," to any person appearing eligible. They must succeed in doing this before the sun rises, or they will be sunburnt and entitled to no reward. Some old-time customs are both curious and interesting, especially those of the 18th century. In the chronicles of those times, there is this leaf from The Diary of a Young Girl. Last Friday was St. Valentine's Day, and the night before, I got 5 bay leaves and pinned them to the 4 corners of my pillow, and the 5th one to the middle. And then, if I dream of a man, we two should be married before the year was out. But to make it more sure, I boiled an egg hard, took out the yolk, filled it with salt, and when I went to bed, ate it, shell and all, without speaking or drinking after it. We also wrote our lovers' names upon bits of paper, rolled them up in clay, and put them in water. The first one that rose up was to be my Valentine. In 1800, the first manufactured Valentines made their appearance. These were high-priced, and the young people constructed their own Valentines with the aid of a few simple materials. These were a quill pen, a sheet of thick writing paper, and an acquaintance with some book of poems. Failing this, they diligently studied the pages of some obliging little chapbook called The Gentleman's New Valentine Writer, or The Bower of Cupid. Nowadays, we celebrate St. Valentine's Day in a social way and give little gifts to our friends as boxes of confectionery, flowers, and jewelry. For a social affair, an evening spent with the little blind god is delightfully entertaining. Write the invitations on rose-colored paper, cut heart-shape with a sketch of Cupid or one of his symbols. In the corner, the name of the day, and in the opposite corner, paste on a button photo of your Valentine for the evening. This photo may be a stranger's face and will prove a source of keen interest in the expectation it arouses, agreeable or otherwise. Make garlands of evergreen or of green tissue paper fringed out with the scissors. String on pink and red hearts cut from stiff paper. Run gilded toothpicks through the arrows. Carry the garlands from the height of the picture molding on all sides of the room to the central chandelier. This will give a beautiful, bowery effect. A poetry contest along sentimental lines would be very appropriate and could commence the evening's fun. The hostess gives out sheets of writing paper of a heavy quality with pencils attached. Here are a few samples of the style of poetry that should be used. These are written out by the hostess on the papers, and you are to guess the name of the poet whose verse you think it is. I take you as a gift that God has given, and I love you. The white rose weeps, she is late. The larkspur listens, I hear, and the lily whispers, I wait. If thou wilt be my Valentine, the honeymoon will always shine. The sea hath its pearl, but all I have is my darling girl. Go, lovely rose, tell her I love her. None knew thee, but to love thee. Oh, that we two were maying down the stream of the soft spring breeze. The supper served should be simple, but at the same time may be productive of much jollity. The prevailing color for the viands, red and pink tints. Have little side dishes filled with broken candy hearts with mottos on. These should be passed as a first course, as the pieces you pick up may require the whole supper time to match. The juice of blood oranges in a sherbet will give a lovely pomegranate pink. Have a cranberry jelly mold with the center cut out, leaving 2 inches of edge all around, and fill in with fruit or chicken salad. Spread raspberry jam between thin slices of heart-shaped bread and tie with pink ribbons. Iced cakes can have the pink tint in the icing, also the ice cream. For a center bouquet, have a vase of roses or carnations and a flower tied with ribbon to each name card. If these flowers must be artificial, there may be more of them, as the expense for paper flowers is slight. Make garlands of roses and run from the chandelier to the corners of the table where a little bisque Cupid can hold each in place. Strew single roses over the white cloth between the dishes. If you have a set of rosebud decorated china, use it. As a bouquet of artificial roses for a centerpiece would not look well, make it a cake, an angel, sponge, or pound cake, baked in a heart-shaped tin. Wreath the edge in small roses. This cake has been cut in as many pieces as there are guests, and a slip of thin paper with a fortune written on it slipped in. The pieces of cake are then fitted in place, and the rose-tinted icing hides where the cake has been cut. The fortunes are not to be read until the next morning. They are to be placed under the pillow, to be dreamed on, and possibly the fortune and dream may so tally as to be very significant. T. Celestine Cummings in The Mother's Magazine.